Good afternoon, good day, good morning, wherever you're joining us from, and welcome to the Power Her Africa series. My name is Nziki Mkize. I'm the founder of Mentor, and I will be your host today. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with our various experts as we come together and we talk about how can we bridge the gap between STEM careers, how do we create opportunities, how do we take advantage of opportunities that exist across the African continent for women, not just in the tech space, but across the STEM careers. And today, our specific focus is around fintech and payment systems. Now, if you are a millennial or a Gen Z, the aspiration, I think, used to be having a black card, and that's what people were looking forward to. But technology has taken over, and everywhere I go, I simply see people G-paying with their watches and their phones. And I think that's where it's at, right? And then kind of going, what do these new developments have in place for presenting new opportunities for small businesses, for startups, for entrepreneurs? How are big corporations adapting and changing, and what kind of new technologies are they bringing to the table? But also speaking to what is government doing about it, and as a regulator that's responsible for creating a viable environment, what kind of opportunities does that present? I'm not by myself. The series is only possible through our partners, Women in Tech and Seed South Capital. And so I'd like to invite to our virtual stage Melissa Slaymarket, who is from Women in Tech South Africa, as well as Nadia Mayer, who is from Seed South Capital, just to chat to us a little bit about heart and passion behind this and why this necessary for them. So Nadia, Manal, over to you first, and then we'll jump over to Melissa. Why are we here? Why Power Her Africa?
Thanks so much, Nsiki, and it's good to be on the call today. Power Her Africa is a co-creation between Women in Tech and Seed South Capital. And why are we here? We are here to create access to network for female leaders in the space, sectors across government, university, startup, as well as university. And we have chosen the topic today with regards to fintech and payment. Melissa is a specialist in the sector, but also from a fund perspective. Seed South Capital is a female-led and majority Black-owned venture firm. And $1.5 billion were pushed into Africa to support or to invest into fintech and payment solutions across Africa. But even now, less than 1% has gone to female founders. And it's important to highlight the role models that we have today so that women have role models to look forward to in leadership across sector, but also to highlight and stress the need to invest more into female founders. So that's just a little. I'm based in Dubai. I'm a co-founder for Seed South Capital, and I work closely with Melissa as the Chief Strategy Officer for Women in Tech Global. Over to you, Mel.
So thank you so much for that, Nadia. We go back so long. It feels like we've been working together forever on various initiatives. So I'm Melissa Slaymaker, the Country Director for South Africa chapter for Women in Tech. And I also am the Talent Hub Director for Women in Tech Global. So my sort of experience has always been in a recruitment, talent acquisition, talent hiring, and finding diverse talent for my companies that I work for. And also we're helping companies to get access to, more diverse talent. So that's really close to my heart. And as a recruiter, I've for many years focused on fintech and payments. So I know this industry very well. And I really am passionate about just the innovation, the financial inclusion aspect of it, the real problems that are being solved in the sector. So today is a real great session that I'm looking forward to hearing more about. And from a women in tech perspective, I think we're here because we want to help inspire more youth and more women to consider fintech or payments space as a career and find out how these women and these inspirational leaders came to be in their roles. And potentially, if we can just inspire one person today, then that's, job done for me. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Nadia and Melissa. And I'm sure we are going to inspire a lot of people because I'm looking at the comments and there's a lot of great chats coming through. So Leandra says, hi, everybody, excited for this conversation. As I'm breaking into tech, would love to connect with so many influential women. That's lovely to hear. I see Rupa's joining us from London. We have Aisha joining us from Ireland. I'm just trying to see who else is in here as well. We've got Marvelous. Hi, Marvelous, joining us from Nigeria. Mary Jean is joining us from Cape Town. She says she's excited. I'm an honor to be part of the conversation today. And I just want to see one more person over here. Let me see who. We've got Vivian joining us from Canada. So literally across the world, we have ladies joining us, and I've seen some gentlemen as well. Some people joining us from Ghana, Guadeloupe, in the Caribbean. So welcome to all of you. And I think that our speakers, as they go through the conversation today, will really highlight on various trends and things that we can kind of be mindful of in terms of what's happening in different regions. I'd also like to say to you, whether you are streaming live, joining the conversation from LinkedIn or from YouTube, please do head over to LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and follow the Women in Tech pages, as well as the Seed South Capital page as well. And so I would like to ask everybody maybe just to share emojis in the comments. So you can use clap sign, the clap emojis. You can use happy faces. Oh wow, there's so many people here: Florida, Morocco, Brooklyn, New York. Oh, that's so exciting! And so please do share the emojis as I welcome our speakers for today, or our panelists rather for today. And you'll see them come onto the screen as I mention their names. So first up, I'd like to welcome Jita Daya, who is the Head of Quality Assurance at Bank Zero. I'd like to welcome Fundi Ndaba, who is an organizational effectiveness specialist with a specific focus on gender inclusion and diversity, and also to welcome Tanya Kruger, who is the Vice President, SME Head at MasterCard, and Leanne Lancaster, who is the Chief Revenue Officer for Float Pays. Now, the ladies joining us this afternoon in South Africa, it's the afternoon, have a combined experience of working in tech, working with women, doing change management, looking at how we bring in new systems, but also build systems. So I think there's a wealth of knowledge in the room today. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you. And I think I'll start just by asking each of you, because oftentimes when I look at technology, it's something that's been in existence for a long time, but I think in the last kind of 10 years, there's been all these leaps and bounds that are almost like, this wave came in out of it. But there's already a specialist space, and we often hear about how there aren't enough women in the STEM space and how women are underrepresented. And so you ladies are doing incredible work. So I'd like to know from each of you, how did you get into the space and who were your role models when you first started? So I will, let's go in this order: Jita, Tanya, Leanne, and then Fundi. So I won't interrupt you in between, but just a quick sound bite. How in the space, and who was your role model when you first started?
Thanks, Nsiki. Well, I started out almost by mistake, I'd say, studying at university, becoming an accountant. One of my sideline subjects was information systems. And over time, I actually found myself thoroughly enjoying the topic, and I guess the creativity, the problem-solving aspect of it, to the point where I actually decided to turn that to my major in my degree, and eventually entering. And I guess at that stage, you're not really sure about what this holds and what you're about to get into. But I guess from my perspective, there was, I can't say I really had a role model in the space.
I'm not sure if Jita is frozen there or if it's just me.
I think
Okay, cool. I
Jita,
think
you're a
we'll
little
try
bit
to get
frozen. We can
Jita.
go to the next one.
We'll come back over to you, and then Leanne, and then Fundi.
Is it my turn? Sorry, Nsiki. So So essentially, from my perspective, I also almost accidentally started working in the field that I am today. I'll give an example. I grew up in a very small town, a mining community that didn't even have an ATM at that stage. So, payments was the furthest from my mind growing up. Um, and thinking from a role model perspective, I think back in the day, I would certainly say that it was my dad, and the reason for that being was that he really taught me to, whatever I ended up doing, to give it my 100% commitment, always walk the extra mile and so on. And I think that for me is really a tribute to the successes that I've had in my career to date.
Wow, Tanya, that's actually amazing in that you and I share very similar role models. So my kickoff in financial services has always been over the last 25 years, really working within financial services, traditional financial services that focuses at the bottom of the pyramid. And about 15 years ago, when cell phones were first emerging, I was part of an organization called the Kuyasa Fund. And before applications we're still working on the old Blackberries, we developed technology that allowed us to provide housing finance to women who take part in Stokvels directly in the townships. So we developed an online platform, and that instantly got me thinking around how we scale financial services at the base of the pyramid, utilizing financial technology. So I've spent the last 15 years of my career scaling organizations, fintech organizations across Africa, and very similar to you in that my role model has been my father, who had taught me the basics of your values, and irrespective of where you operate and where you live, how those values guide you. And then in a professional space, some people over my career that have inspired me, Lalemba Piri, who is the former CEO of Zona, Natalie Miller, who's the Chief Revenue Officer of XRG Global, Samantha Burns, a former director at Discovery, Martha Fisher, the African Woman in Fintech and Payments chairperson, and then Helen Ziller, strangely enough, simply because I love her gusto and I love her absolute chutzpah of getting things done. And I don't mind the fact that sometimes she has a controversial view.
So I appreciate how you've probably shared on your techno experience. Mine is different. I was introduced into techno space by accident, and probably that's a result of the work that we do to support your functions. So we come into organizations from change management perspective. We ensure the collective of change into the IT space. So and the reason would have been, as much as there are all these good solutions, unless there's a human element in them, it takes a while to get them adopted. That's how I joined into the space. And the difference in it also would have been, how do you create a culture around technology? How do you create a user experience around technology? How do you communicate data reality, the outcome and responses, and reinforce changes in businesses? And as a result, that on its own has been a way that enabled me to champion tech engagement from gender perspective, realizing that there's a few women that are probably in that space, and that we have an opportunity to build profile, career pathing, and opportunities that talk to them. Thank you.
Sorry, Nsiki, my line
Fantastic
dropped
from each of you. Just
unfortunately at that point. But
yes, I was about to welcome you back.
yes, but it's interesting to hear the stories, because I guess very similar in my space in terms of role models. I think I came from a dominant family of females, So in my opinion, I came in with a lot of that influence, a lot of strong women who also just kind of taught you that there's no such thing as you cannot do something. So I think entering the market and entering the workspace in a male-dominant environment in banking and in IT, I didn't really have that, idea of you can't do something or you're not an equal, which I guess really worked in my favor. And I was very fortunate to have a male manager at the time who I guess was very encouraging. He never behaved in the way that, this is a male dominant environment. So as a female, you don't fit. Very encouraging, very supportive. And I must say, I think that made an exceptional impact on my career. So that's just something I'd like to highlight, because although we talk about females, we do get these wonderful supporting males in the workplace as well. And I must say I was very appreciative of that.
So much for sharing, and it's lovely to hear each individual story and how there's similarities, whether it's the role models at home that spur us on in the right direction, or people that we meet the journey and in our workplace inspire us. As you were speaking, I think, Leanne, you mentioned so many names, and I hope our guests took down those names, because often I find young people go, I don't know who to look at in this space. And Leanne gave so many wonderful examples of people you can kind of do a Google search, that lovely little stalking thing that we do, and find out that you can out there. So start out, one of the first things that I'd like to do is kind of debunk the industry, especially for people who, this feels very intimidating to me, or I don't get a lot of the lingo, so I'm not really sure what's going on or where I fit in the grander scheme of things. So Leanne, I'd like to come to you and just ask, for people who don't know what fintech is, right? How to define fintech? Is fintech? And then Jita, I'd like to come to you on the second part of that around digital payments, and what has the landscape really been in Africa, and how do you see that landscape changing?
Perfect. Thank you so much for that great question. So I think for me, explaining to someone who may not necessarily know what fintech is and find the term relatively intimidating, it's really, really simple. It's broken down in that word, financial technology. And for me, it's really around how we utilize technology to deliver financial services in such a way that is scalable. But over and above that, it's bringing revolutionary technologies to communities in ways that in the past, through a non-digitized fashion, would have taken years. So financial technology really is the enablement of financial services, innovative financial services, through a technology platform. That's also supported very well through the proliferation of mobile devices across Africa, and it's just being able to get to those really rural communities, offering them financial services through the device in their hand.
Yes, I think I completely agree with Leanne in this respect. Thinking about fintech and digital payments, I think the most important thing for me, as if you look at it from a consumer perspective, over time things have changed dramatically. No one wants to stand in a long queue in a branch waiting to do something, and after you've waited hours, somebody says to you, you're missing a document, and then you want to die and you've got to go back home and start all over again. So I guess, in the world we currently live in, we're looking at instant gratification, getting things done simply and quickly. So, exactly what Leanne says, fintech is all about automating financial services, I guess, bringing it into the hands of consumers. So you can control when you want to make a payment or any of those types of things, at your leisure, in the comfort of your own home or wherever it is that you may be. So I think for me, that is exactly where we need to go. That's with the pandemic that we've just been through as well. Had we not had this type of functionality available, life would have been extremely difficult. I think in South Africa, especially given where we are in banking, and the ability to make payments digitally has really set us apart, I think, significantly. And this does change the future. There's so many opportunities, I guess, how we do things going forward. There's definitely a lot of room for growth in this respect. I'd say not just in our country, but internationally as well. So I think it brings us a great opportunity in this environment, and definitely gives consumers, I think there are two schools. You have the consumers who are, I guess, still a bit skeptical, and we need to do some work around that education and understanding of, and ensuring there's security that plays a huge part of digital payments. The second part are those adopters that are excited to use it. So how do you keep engaging and improving those services, just to reach all people, and just to make, I guess, life easier for yourself. That's really what Fintech is about, to make life easier and safe. Safety being very important.
That's such a good point, and thanks for touching on that, because I think a lot of people also feel a little bit of intimidation around the fintech space because of that aspect of digital security, cybersecurity, and I think people maybe not knowing how to navigate the space, and that's such a true point. I mean, Leanne, I like the point that you mentioned around, the technology that's available in our hands. Oftentimes, I find when people think about fintech, they're thinking about the blockchain-based kind of solutions, and it's really something as simple as, using M-Pesa or using whatever money send app is available in your country, even if it's over USSD, simple payment platforms. Those are all different aspects of innovation around fintech, how we use fintech, and how it's making moving money a lot easier for individuals as well as for startups and businesses in general. Tanya, I'd like to come to you, sitting where you sit with MasterCard and kind of looking after the region that you look after. What are some of the key trends that you're seeing in the space that we should be mindful of as entrepreneurs, as corporates playing in space? What are some of the things that you look at that makes you go, this is the shift that we need to align ourselves with to make sure that we're ready for the future?
Thank you, Nsike. Apologies. Yeah, so I think, from a MasterCard perspective, we also acknowledge the value in fintechs, right? So I'll give you a great example. The way that we operate, always used to be working with the banks, and also being, transitioning from a card company now into a technology company. We do realize the value of fintechs and the partnerships that they can enable. And subsequently, we've actually created fintech teams within the MasterCard space to really make sure that the way that we deal with them is up to standard, and not, they have a faster pace than what you typically see the banks move. Now, from a technological perspective, just in terms of trends, I think, I specifically focus on small and medium enterprises in our region. And it's really around solving the pain points that they have. Gita mentioned or talked about the pandemic a little bit. And, from a small merchant perspective, these guys were really significantly impacted. So what we are doing from a MasterCard perspective is really around looking at how we solve their pain points. And we do that over a couple of pillars, right? So the one is, how do we enable them to pay and to get paid? The other one is around, how do we get them to be digital? I think a lot of businesses suffered severely when they had to close their doors in the bricks and mortar space, and subsequently, creating tools and capabilities to help small entrepreneurs and startups and SMEs to create their online presence without having a technical degree, as an example. And then the last pillar, which is also essentially very important, is around giving them access to credit. I think that's a huge pain point that we see in the space in all markets across the globe, not only from a MEA perspective, but it's really a big pain point. And it's, how do we partner with, banks, micro lenders, and the likes of those people to make sure that, the backbone of our country, which is essentially SMEs, have access to the right, tool sets to help them and thrive and build their businesses.
Thank you, Tanya. And that definitely is the point, making sure that SMEs do have that access, do have that support, and are able to be active players in the ecosystem in a way that allows them not just be stuck in that space, but they're figuring out how to survive in their businesses. You know, when we talk about tech innovations, it being revenue season in South Africa, I want to go over to Fundi because there's a lot of growth and development that has happened at SARS that's made applying and filing for your taxes a lot easier. But Fundi, I really want to ask you more the question around women in this space. And I think oftentimes when we talk about technology, we often hear about how women are left behind. And in the work that you do with having that gender lens focus, are you seeing vision of women? Are we seeing more women, take charge of the conversation, lead where we're going into of fintech, and just designing the solutions that exist in the space?
So I'll speak to the current work that I'm doing in government with SARS, but I would also speak in the social activism initiatives that I'm involved in. If the institution had to be a smart, modern organization that is able to automate their processes, they have developed an internal system which allows for women to go on career paths that allows for IT or tech development, that they have done through training programs that are being commissioned. I think we've got more than 50 or 65 programs in the organization that speaks to career development and IT related for women empowerment. That's one angle. And also the recruitment drive that the organization had taken at the time, it's specifically to women, but also to balance the BEE scorecard would include ensuring that women are the drivers of such engagement. That's one part. In the social activism space, there's a demand for women. There's so much demand for women that some of the institutions are willing to train, develop women, and yet it's such a challenge for most of women to go into the IT space. So you'd run away with what is out there and what the possibilities are. How do we make it lucrative and interesting for women to go through that space? Yes, the numbers have increased. One of my colleagues who does training and development in the university had shared that they had more intake over the past 4 years of women in the IT space, which was not common before that, which means there's some drive of and we are cognizant of the opportunities as they are happening.
Thank you, Fundi. We did lose your audio there a little bit, but I think we got most of what you said. And I'm mindful that you did say that you had some load shedding challenges. So while we have you still on a good connection, I'm going to ask you another question in the hopes that you don't drop off. But really saying, looking at the ecosystem as is at the moment, and the work that you do in government, what do you think could be done to better improve the playing field? And are there any things you're seeing that's happening behind the government is doing to make this space more efficient and effective for entrepreneurs?
So there's a whole lot of entities currently, and I'm going to talk from the triple P perspective, which is government, private sector, and probably so what we have in those spaces is a lot of entities are using online opportunities of growth, and they are making sure that out of that we have entrepreneurs that are developed. I can give you 6 or 7 companies that are currently busy championing entrepreneurship development in partnership with government. That is either IDC, CETA, the cities and the local communities, be it Cape Town and Johannesburg. I'm just making those as examples, which are specifically targeting entrepreneurship development and women focus. But I was also lucky at some point just before the COVID hit to be part of the initiative of empowering 100 women. And when COVID happened, instead of doing it directly on face-to-face that we had initially agreed, we had to go online. And they've never shifted from the online empowerment initiatives currently. So yeah, we are on growth path on that level. But I think there's an opportunity that we would need to have more on that, that we probably would need to focus on, in how do we entice women to go through those opportunities vis-a-vis men, because that's a standard for me, and probably create initiatives that are women focused. And having said that, and appreciating the ladies in the house, what's also important for me would be to know a platform where we have creative tech women engaging on discussions about initiatives, developments, and programs that we could be brought as a result of our capability to bring solutions in the room. That is important, and that we would need. And I'm looking forward to how do we develop that as a collective in bringing these individuals in the room, and even have a targeted number that we go back to say we had 100 in 2022, we're having 2,000 by 2025 or 2020. And these are the initiatives that we have built in this building blocks to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Fundi. And I really like that approach to having targeted numbers and being clear about how we're going to get there, and when I look at the work that Women in Tech is doing, for example, there's a lot of chapters and community focus and making sure that we're building up those solutions and taking input from the communities upwards. I'd like to open up the platform, Leanne, Tanya, and Jita, just for comments, just to understand, what are the different kind of use cases that you have seen for fintech and payments in South Africa, across the continent, and perhaps in other regions where you've seen that they're really using the technology very well. I mean, then bringing it back home to say, are we using it as well as you've seen it being used in other places? What are some of the things we can do to kind of get there and be on the same global standard as everybody else? I'll start with Leanne, then Tanya, and then Chita.
Thank you so much. I think, there are multiple use cases. We're seeing blockchain, sensors and Internet of Things, mobile payments, augmented reality, smart contracts, robotic process automation, voice-enabled payments, virtual cards, autonomous finance, open banking, artificial intelligence and machine learning, big data, reg check, gamification, quantum computing. The list just goes on and on and on. But I think, for me, it's highlighting some organizations that are really making significant strides within different arenas. So for me, FloatPay is the organization that I work for. We're an earned wage access platform that really helps bring financial inclusion to individuals who need the ability to manage their finances, build up financial resilience, and ultimately be financially educated. And other organizations that are not as well known, but for me are really doing phenomenal things. Kunda is a great organization that's building dynamic embedded financial services that create sustainable economic productivity to agent networks, small business and consumers through liquidity products and services, and they're operating across Africa and in the Middle East. XRG Global, they're building virtual, augmented, and mixed reality training solutions that have revolutionized learning and development in emerging markets with 3D modeling and simulation and training. And then there's the normal ones that we all know about, the Yokos, the Stitch, Luno, Skynamo, Jumo. So for me, there's some significant organizations that are utilizing technology to scale their businesses across the continent.
I think, Leanne mentioned a lot of the capabilities and the trends that you see in the market today. And, coming from a technology company like MasterCard, I can go on and on forever, but I think, I'll speak to a few of the trends and the use cases that we see in the African market in particular, again, with a focus on small and medium businesses. So I think we can all acknowledge that, not all businesses have the luxury in terms of owning a point of sale terminal, given the fact where they operate from. There are often, a lot of constraints from that perspective. And subsequently, we are trying to come up with solutions, low-cost solutions that would solve for these pain points. And contactless can actually be a great equalizer for small businesses. And what we've, invested in is what we call tap-on-phone technology. And this is essentially where an SME can turn their mobile device into an accepting device. So not only he could use his phone to tap to pay for something, but someone can also tap their card on his actual Android device to make a contactless payment. The other thing that we are doing, or that we are launching in a lot of markets in our region, is QR payments. Now, QR essentially is a low-cost payment device whereby someone can scan or use USSD technology to pay a merchant. And essentially, in the majority of the markets, what we do here is we facilitate a push payment that provides the merchant with a near real-time payment solution, as opposed to, if you're having a POS device today, you are dependent on interbank settlement. Then we'll give you another example. We've partnered with Lesego in Mozambique, and there we piloted a community commerce really to digitize low-value transactions for shopkeepers. And then maybe just another one or two is around remittances. Siki, you spoke about remittances very briefly, but we've got a platform, our MasterCard Send platform, and it really facilitates use cases like person-to-person payments, domestically as well as cross-border. And I think we all acknowledge that, sending money home is a huge thing in our markets. And essentially, we again try to do that in a near real-time fashion. And we also, expand these use cases to person-to-merchant push payments, governments, payroll, etc., etc. We do believe that investing in micro merchants not only advances financial inclusion, but it also drives the digital economy that is safer, simpler and smarter and more accessible for everyone.
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, pretty much in line with what the other two ladies have said, is I think there are many use cases, but some of the ones that we're at Bank Zero actually focusing on is also QR Pay. So I find for the focus being on small and medium businesses in South Africa in particular, enabling a business to onboard, create accounts also from an app in the palm of your hand at home. And part of our ecosystem allows payments using QR codes. So between businesses and individuals that need to perhaps pay to the business, that becomes extremely convenient. There's a lot of security around that. You don't need to share personal banking details and all of that type of thing. So it does become extremely easy and convenient for businesses, and especially businesses that don't perhaps have, like you guys say, the equipment, the POS devices, all those things. So in remote places especially. So that becomes very helpful for small businesses and keeps costs quite low. So focus there, definitely some use cases there. Business banking in general, I think there's a lot to be tapped into there in that space. So definitely in the Bank Zero realm, there's a lot of focus on that, how to simplify services, how to give businesses accessibility to things through the app. And I guess one of the untapped areas is banking for children. So for us, the focus is on children below 16 years old, but making that secure. So a parent in our space has to actually invite a child to the app for security reasons, of course. And then the child is actually able to start taking banking into their own hands, have an app on the phone. They're able to understand and start learning financial management from a very young age, which I think is extremely important, especially in South Africa, we're not very good at saving. So for us, that's a very, very good starting point for young children to actually start practicing and managing their own money. And we've actually seen the behavior. We get some really funny stories from parents, where children are actually really being careful about where they spend their money. And it's definitely shifting the environment. And I guess that's the best place to start. So I think we definitely have a lot of opportunity in South Africa in our space, yeah.
There is the opportunity, and as you said that, I was reminded of my niece. I got a little money coin bag from a fast food chain, and I gave it to her because I was like, it's a toy, I don't need it. She looked at me, she goes, but this is for coins. And I was like, yes. And she goes, oh no, I don't have coins, I only have paper. So I imagine if she had a digital banking system, I'd like to hear the comments she'd have to say back. Just quickly on the chat section, Nobelo says, so glad that I could catch this conversation, really needed it. And I'd just like to encourage, if anybody has any questions, please do share them in the comment section, whether you're joining on LinkedIn or YouTube, just put it up in the comments and I'll be able to see it here. And we do have a space here where we do encourage making an ask, so if you're working on a project and you'd like to collaborate, please do share that, because there is a network of people here. And I see Joy has made a request saying that, she's looking for a job as a software project manager. And Joy, I think you've connected via LinkedIn, so please do connect with people on the Women in Tech LinkedIn page, but you can also head over to Women in Tech's website and check out the Talent Hub and see what opportunities exist there. So, each of you ladies have spoken really so well to the various use cases and opportunities that exist. And I think often, specifically in Africa, when it comes to anything tech-based, is the cost of data, the access to energy. So in South Africa at the moment, we have recently had like stage 6 load shedding, so when people haven't had power, whatever other challenges exist in the space. So what are some of the hurdles that you have seen in the landscape, and what are some of the things that can be done to make sure that the ecosystem is more cohesive, that we can have more greater participation in the space? And with this, now I'll go Jita, Tanya, Lian, and then Fundi.
Apologies, Nsiki, I missed a bit of what you said.
No worries. So I was just a question around the challenges that you have seen in the space that make it, difficult to kind of take on fintech, and what are some of the things that can be done to make sure that we make the ecosystem more cohesive and move past those challenges?
Thanks, Nsiki. I think one of the biggest challenges is funding. That's something that seems to be quite prevalent, but I think there's a lack of knowledge or understanding on how do you get funding, who do you approach, where do you go, how do you actually go about getting funding? And I can't say I have the answer, but I think for me that definitely stands out. It is still a hurdle. I think there needs to be perhaps a lot more collaboration, partnerships, and I guess just possibly just more sharing of this information. It becomes a bit easier for people to actually access this and understand, at least get a starting point. I feel that's quite lacking, and that is quite a challenge currently in the space.
Yeah, and I think to add to that.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. To add to that, I think, you are spot on, Geeta, but I think, also from our perspective, I think, we do see the value in partnerships. In particular, if you look at the pain points that we all are facing on a day-to-day basis, there are companies with niche solutions that, could solve for a lot of these pain points. And I think one of the big mistakes that companies often make is to think that they can solve for everything themselves. I always joke and say, well, we're not great app builders, but we know people that are great in building apps, as an example. So I think really it's around understanding the capabilities and what you see within your markets, and even from a wider perspective, and really doing that collaboration and doing it well to then jointly take solutions to market and to solve pain points that everyone is facing.
I wanted to say that in agreement with what is being said in the House, the challenges for most, it's funding. But for me, having engaged most of the entrepreneurs, it's also a realization that not all programs requires funding. Some of them require passion and a little bit of the drivers in the spaces that they engage. And incidentally, my excitement is capturing the tools that you said could be used for banking, for procuring, for inventory and all in this room, which could make the entrepreneurs work or ways of engaging much better. I imagine us having further conversations in other platforms as to how do we drive entrepreneurship as an alternative to the government offerings, and acknowledging where the government is current in terms of enabling and empowering the ground or the entrepreneurship or people that are looking for such opportunities. I see a network of or partnerships where we could go and teach 1,000 of those entrepreneurships and the tools that you've just spoken about, which some of them are not necessarily expensive, but necessary to ensure that banking happen, to ensure that they've got good report and record, so that when they go one day looking for that funding, they already have the record to prove themselves on the income or the bank balance sheet that they might have. So it's a world of opportunity with the ladies in the room, and I see sparks thinking about the possibilities that we could have if we were to put that together and channel it where it should be going. Empowering 1,000 women, 100 of them, if not 500, in the tools that we have, and see how do we grow them, because their growth means there's an opportunity in the financial cycles that we would need for South Africa.
So I share the same sentiments as everyone around the table, specifically around partnerships. I'm seeing organizations, very large organizations, that are starting to partner with fintech organizations, and seeing how that collaboration drives technology. But what I'd like to do is just bring it one step back to, our original conversation around challenges within the industry. And I think, over and above the opportunities for partnerships, I think there's even more opportunity for us to understand that inclusive and relevant financial services are really critical to enabling women to build financial security and prosperity, and ultimately, the impact that women have on economic empowerment. And I really would like to see more and more organizations having women representative right across various levels of business, especially in that decision-making table. We know that gender diverse teams are better equipped to drive innovative solutions, and bringing that inclusivity, in organizations and in partnerships. Really, organizations can benefit from gender equality in their within their workforce. And we see, within banks, within financial services, where women are leading, and those organizations have superior financial performance and are more stable and are more financially resilient. So for me, it's not just the discussion around partnerships and driving technology, but it's around who has a voice at the table and how those women are contributing towards that discussion.
Thank you so much. I think I echo Fundi's excitement here to say there's so many opportunities, there's so much to do in terms of collaboration and moving forward together in partnership to take advantage of what's on the table, but I think more than that is to co-create and co-design what this looks like next. There's a lot happening, but it's still in the early stages. So there's opportunities for people to partner with corporate, there's opportunities for people to partner from a government perspective, and for entrepreneurs to innovate differently. I just want to jump at the comments here quickly. Parsha says, this is so valuable. We hardly have the time to take a step back and look at what we have achieved and how far we've come. Thanks, ladies. And then there's a comment here from Marvelous saying, thank you for sharing your experiences. This is a motivation to keep studying and gaining more knowledge in project management. And then I think Samantha here has alluded to my next question, which is also my second last question. And Samantha's asking, what training opportunities are available for women that are needed in fintech, and that was going to be my question, to say that, I know, I don't think anybody here has followed the traditional route of, maybe studying something within the STEM space and then ending up in the role that you're in. So just from a study perspective, from somebody wanting to build a career in the space, for somebody who goes, I've got basic skills, but I'm not sure what to do next, and I'm not sure, which path to follow. In building my expertise. What could you ladies recommend? And I'll kind of just go around the table for anybody who wants to contribute to that. Just an example of training that's available, or even just focus areas. There's so much opportunity in this space, and somebody might be overwhelmed with, where do I even start, and what discipline do I build myself up in? Leanne nodding, so I'll go to you first, Leanne.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's really about your passion. So irrespective of which part speaks to your soul, if you are a customer orientated individual and you build relationships, there's opportunities within the fintech space. If you are driven around data and finance, there's opportunities within the fintech space. If you're looking at being a software engineer, being in the customer service space, in every single element in traditional roles, all of those roles can be expanded into the fintech space. So for me, it's like identifying your passion, identifying your area where you've got those skill sets, marrying them together, and then very importantly, finding an organization that is aligned with your personal values, so that it's not just a job, it's not just a career, it's something where you're really contributing towards making a difference in the lives of others, and it's aligned to your personal purpose.
Thanks, Leanne. Fundi, for somebody who goes, I'm in what's happening, but I also to make sure that women are included in the conversation. Any advice on how somebody can, position themselves either from a career perspective or a startup perspective, to work with government, with policy makers, also making sure that women are at those tables having the conversation. Sorry, Fundi, could you please just unmute yourself quickly?
Oh, there we are. I was saying, for anybody who wants to go into the tech space, especially the government tech space, it would be important to look at the future ways of working, the opportunities there, which for me include the data scientist, the data analyst, the data, because in the end, data will drive resolutions, data will drive possible solutions, data will drive ethical engagement, data is going to be our truth in the future. And having said that, the best advice that I've shared with the colleagues who probably are at the beginning part of their journeys in their career pathing is the courses that you could do from HR as a value add could be a course that includes data and data management, so that when you scale up, you already have an insight as to how do we use data in an HR, meaning we do not necessarily all need to be techno specialists in terms of the development, and it could be how do we use the solution as a result of the technology to produce the solutions that we require, and then which becomes the how do I specialize in industrial psychology but add information management and technologies to create solution thereof. So it's a balanced program to the solutions that we would want to put to the table. And having said that, most of the programs and the solutions in the room are not necessarily techno-based, and in an essence, they are as a result of the process that one needs to follow to achieve something in that aspect. And if that is the cause, champion where you are, see how do we marry that with the times so that we were able to give the current solutions to the problems that we have. And I think that's very scientific answering, but grow your career within the space that you're in, but augment it with the use of data or technology in your space? Thank you.
So, Nsiki, I think just from
Wendy,
my
thank you so much.
perspective,
Tanya,
Yeah.
sorry.
So from am I off mute?
sorry,
Yeah.
yes.
So
I'm just
really
sorry if I'm hearing Tanya's audio.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Nsiki,
I'll
yes,
just
go
wait for a
ahead.
second. This is a contribution from Tanya, and then we'll come over to you.
So I think what I can add there is that, if you want to work in the payment sector, that really means that you'll be at the heart of any organization's operations. So really, the size of the company will influence how you will approach the role, what options you have to grow, and the opportunities to move laterally. But I think very key is versatility. It's the quality that predicts success in this field. And nowadays, it's not enough just to follow the rules, but to push the boundaries, to be curious, and to be collaborative. And I think to Leanne's point, you might say that you don't need a degree, or there are definitely some fields that you can go into. But I think it's also as part of the passion. And if you've got the passion and the want to do something in this space, you can start, somewhere small. I'll give you an example. I started as a call center agent. It's really about that passion and working your way up. And if you're really passionate about what you are doing, I would say just go for it.
Thank you,
Yes, so
Tanya.
I
And
think,
as you bring in your response, question to you. I mean, Deborah was saying, how easy is it for somebody with no financial academic background, to transition a finance-based tech role? So, just as you respond, maybe you could speak to that as well.
okay. Well, Nsiki, I think, the one thing I just wanted to touch on is, I guess the first thing for most people that to understand is, when you go into a fintech, there's a perception that you have to be very technical or be a programmer. But there's so many other roles, I guess, around that, that people aren't always really clear about. I mean, being a fintech, it's a huge part of it is the financial space. So you get various other parts of the business that you need to fill, so where you can play in. So, for example, there's analysis, there's also the data science, there's the cybersecurity, there's project management, there's various other roles that can and need to be filled in order for the fintech to operate as a whole. So I think that's quite important for people to understand. You don't need to be hands-on technical programmer and get into all of that, because that can be very intimidating and put people off this space. So I think that's one thing to note. But to answer your question, you don't need to be. I mean, I think it does count in your favor if you understand the financial space, because things kind of make sense. But I think a lot of it you actually learn on the job, because you are so entrenched, whether you're in the IT space or any of the other parts of the business, because it's, in the financial world, that's all you do. You end up just living and breathing and speaking the same speak at some stage, where IT and business overlap. So whether you like it or not, I think you eventually do end up just understanding the space. You don't need to become that expert, but you do end up understanding enough in order to perform your role and contribute to the organization. So I wouldn't say that's something to really worry about, or to put you off from joining that type of organization. Not at all.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is, if you have a passion for the space, if you have a discipline in, or that you've already studied, and customize your journey and kind of how to take what you already know to the space. And that passion and hard work you through. As we wrap up our conversation, each of our incredible ladies joining us, I'd like to find out, what is your one power? So when you step into the room, as you break barriers, as you pioneer, as you clear the path for the ladies coming behind you, as you shine your light, make a difference in the space you work in, as you bring your passion, what's your one power that makes you who you are? And with that, I'll go Fundi, Gita, Tanya, and Leanne.
I was going to be the last because I need to think carefully about this. I just want to share that what I've learned in life is I am nothing without the other. So my work speaks to engaging others and ensuring some changes in their qualities of life. So each time I wake up every day, the question is, where am I fixing with my little mental screwdriver, or how do I engage with the next person to be able to support them to be better in one way or the other? And that's what gets me to wake up, and it translates in all the work that I do. Thank you.
I think from my perspective, I would say consistency is my power. You know, in the way that you show up, in the way that you do everything that you do. So for me, that's what I do. I'm very consistent. I believe in being me. You know, that is my power. Being myself, being unique, and bringing myself to the table. That's extremely important, especially in a world where people want you to fit into boxes. For me, I think it is difficult. It is very difficult to do that, but I constantly maintain that, and I feel that definitely makes the difference.
So I think from my perspective, and I like what everyone said here, I want to change mine, but okay, let me go with what I had. So for me, I think is around connecting the dots. I'm really passionate about, looking at the problem, trying to solve it the best I can, and to make things easier for other people by solving those problems.
Tanya, that's very interesting. I think, it's very similar. For me, my secret power is typically, C-level employees don't have cross-functional roles. They'll work in very specialized areas, but they very seldom branch out. In today's world, I find that you need more generalist experience with deep-rooted specialist experience right across the business. So you really need to understand the various elements right across the business, irrespective of your role. So if you're very sales-driven, you need to have an understanding of the financial elements. You need to understand marketing. You need to understand tech. So it's really getting that generalist experience, but applying it within your specialist field. For me, that's my superpower.
I love hearing individual power. That's fantastic. And I would like to echo the words of Candace Germain. This right here is every of us. Thank you. So Leanne Lancaster, Tanya Kruger, Gita Daya, and Funda. But thank you so much for sharing your insights, your expertise with us, and just allowing us to glean at your feet. We took you to lunch for an hour, and we could have 4 different hour-long conversations. So this shot just into fintech and payment systems has really great. And I think looking at the chat and some of the questions that have come up and the comments that have been made, you've really helped some people jump on the right path and figure out what their next steps are. So thank you so much. And to everyone who's joined us, please do keep the conversation going in the chat room and connect to everybody who's commented here, because it's such a wonderful community across the globe. I'd like to bring back to the virtual screen our partners, Nadia and Melissa, just to get your final words before we wrap up. And I think specifically, Melissa, I think a lot of people would like to hear from you around the Talent Hub, because I've seen a lot of questions of people saying, I'm a newbie in this space, I'm looking for a job as a project manager. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to start. I don't know what to look at. And I think it'd be great to hear from you, Melissa, what opportunity access through the Talent Hub at Women in Tech. So I have Melissa back on the screen, and Nadia's coming up. So Melissa, can we get 5 marks from you, and then we'll go over to Nadia, and then we'll wrap up.
Hi, thank you. Oh, I think my screen is slightly delayed. Can you hear me? Let me just close this door. Hello. Oh, hang on. Nadia, if you can go first. I'm just going to fix my computer.
Good. I think on unmute. Thanks so much, Ntiki, for hosting the session. The women were absolutely amazing. We have more role models in the space, and each added their color and flavor to the topics at hand, from partnerships to access to funding to bringing more women on the decision-making levels at the table, also giving insight into what the different companies do in the space and how they really help communities on the ground, from high level to those needing payment solutions for their small to SME businesses. So just on the funding side, so Seed South Capital is a majority Black-owned and female-led investment firm. We have a consulting arm. We work with the Department of Science and Innovation, with the Technology Innovation Agency, with research institutions, and with universities. We focus on IP commercialization, but also on early stage funding. So for those founders who are in the audience or on the call, from a talent perspective, Women in Tech has a talent hub, but from a funding perspective, please do reach out to Seed South Capital. If you have a MVP and are in the South African ecosystem, you're a South African business with a minimum viable product in early stage, please reach out to us. You have my page. I dropped it into the chat. And thank you so much to everybody for tuning in from all over the world, and to the women who are now going to be role models in the space for Power Her Africa. Thanks.
Hi there, I'm back again. Sorry about my connection that dropped. So from Women in Tech, first of all, thank you so much to all of our speakers today. It's such an inspiration to see all the similarities, even though if you're working in government or you're working in a startup or you're working in corporate, the challenges and the learnings are sometimes very similar, surprisingly, and also very diverse. So I really enjoyed the talk today. I wanted to just one thing that I also wanted to reiterate is that if you are interested in a career in fintech, then obviously do your research, find out where you could get qualifications from if needed, just to move in that direction. But just don't wait to start. Just keep going. Collaboration is key, I think, for all of us in all industries. So don't ever feel like you're alone. Reach out on LinkedIn, reach out to people, build your network in that space. Like, live and breathe the subject if you're really passionate about it. There's so much free educational pieces online, on YouTube and various places where you can actually get a lot of information from. And then one thing I do want to mention around Women in Tech is that in a few months, a very short 2 months about, we've got our Women in Tech Africa Awards, which will be taking place in Cape Town. The regional awards will take place on the 23rd of September, and the winners of each of the categories will go to our global awards in Dubai. So I will put a link also in the chat box for people to go and nominate yourself, nominate colleagues that you want to uplift and showcase their good work that they're doing in various categories, from startups to best teen award to leadership awards to ally awards. There's something for everyone. I think everyone would benefit from being exposed on a global stage. So it's really exciting for us to be working on the awards. And next, the next Power Her is also going to be very exciting. We're looking at chatting about NFTs, metaverse, and all these fun things. So join us in the next couple of months. Also, keep a lookout for the next Power Her, which will be on that subject. So thank you very much, Nsiki, for hosting. You always do such a wonderful job, and it's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you very much, Nadia. Lovely to hear from both of you. And thank you very much to the ladies who joined us today. This has been our 6th episode of the Power Her Africa series, and it's very exciting to be able to continuously bring experts to the table and share around wonderful, incredible female leaders doing incredible work in their respective spaces. I also just do quickly want to say that we have the latest issue of Mentor magazine out, focused on women in tech as well. So you can get yourself a free copy at www.mentor.co.za. And we will see you on the next episode of Power Her Africa series, when we unpack another great aspect of women in tech and women working in the STEM spaces. Stay safe. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll continue the conversation on social media. Cheers, everyone.